and welcome to another edition of Jews and the News. And this is taking place during the holiday of Sukkot, the first intermediate day of the holiday. So the greeting for during Sukkot is Moadim Lesimcha. Happy holiday to everyone, and I hope you are enjoying the beautiful weather. We were spared the terrible weather in the Northeast, and so far so good here to enjoy being outside and being in the sukkah. We had nice crowds in shul on the first 2 days of the holiday, so um, looking forward to it continuing. Um, I wanted to talk today, um, not necessarily about politics, but about this article that I saw in Times of Israel today, the website that I like to go to for news about Israel. It's a moderate perspective website. So if you want something more right leaning, you can go to Jerusalem Post. If you want something more left leaning, you can go to Haaretz. I like to be in the middle to be able to get perspectives from all sides. And so that's why I like to go to Times of Israel. And there, I'm going to try sharing my screen. It was doing something funny before I started, but let's see if this will work. Oh, just a second. Oh, yes, I see. Uh, just a second here. Oh, ah, okay. So I can't share my screen. This is a new laptop, and apparently I didn't tell my laptop that to allow Zoom to have access to programs, or to allow the laptop to have access to Zoom, or vice versa. So it won't let me share. I could, oh, yes, it will. Okay, it told me that uh, okay, never mind. There it is. Okay. So you get it with all the ads too, Times of Israel. Not as bad as Jerusalem Post, but almost in terms of how many ads there are. So let's see if I can make it bigger.
Oh God.
So I want to, yes, here it is. Okay. So this is the article I want to share. Sephardic chief rabbi claims secular Jews who eat non-kosher food get stupid. Before we take a look at this article, I just want to say that this is not the first time that a chief rabbi of Israel has said something about non ultra Orthodox Jews. I would, so I'm not sure whether the chief rabbis would say the same thing about modern Orthodox Jews as opposed to ultra Orthodox Jews. It's all a matter of style of dress, essentially, but also what synagogue you go to. So, in other words, for ultra Orthodox Jews who wear black coats and black hats with tzitzit, the smaller tallis that ultra Orthodox Jews wear all the time, with the tzitzit, the fringes hanging out, those are ultra Orthodox Jews. Modern Orthodox Jews range in style from white shirt and black pants with either the kind of kippah that I'm wearing or something more velvet or black in texture, um, with or without tzitzit hanging out. The way I'm dressed, a short sleeve shirt, a polo shirt with a couple of buttons, and long pants might be considered to fit into the modern Orthodox world, might not. And then, of course, there are people who don't wear a kippah at all. So the Sephardi chief rabbi, this was yesterday. So yesterday, he would be saying this because yesterday in Israel was the intermediate day of the holiday already. It was not Yom Tov like it was outside of Israel, 2 days of Yom Tov. So the Ashkenazi, so there are two. I'm sorry, I'm kind of taking a while to get back to this point because things are popping in my head that I should explain before we get to what he's doing. So, or what he said. So there are Ashkenazi Jews and Sephardi Jews, as we know. Ashkenazi Jews are hail from Central or Eastern Europe, because Ashkenaz is the Hebrew word for Germany. So Jews from Central Europe and Eastern Europe are Ashkenazi Jews. And then there's Sephardi Jews, Sephardi from Sepharad, meaning Spain, essentially Western Europe, Arab country Jews are Sephardi Jews. When the state of Israel, before even the state of Israel was established, when the Jewish community started immigrating to Israel in great numbers from the 1880s until 1948, the Jewish settlement in what was then known as Palestine had chief rabbis, and they had an Ashkenazi chief rabbi and a Sephardi chief rabbi. And once the state of Israel was established, the chief rabbinate became a tax-supported institution. And the institution of the chief rabbinate, not just having the two rabbis, chief rabbis, but also supporting municipal rabbis, supporting rabbis who would supervise the kashrut of in food processing plants and slaughterhouses, etc. All those rabbis are paid for by the taxes of all citizens of the state of Israel. So if you're an Israeli Arab, your taxes will go to pay the salary of the Ashkenazi and the Sephardi chief rabbis, and also for synagogues. Now, as an Israeli Arab, the Muslim religious authority is also paid for by tax dollars, and most likely mosques are built with the help of the religious authority. Synagogues, that is, Orthodox synagogues, are also built by the taxes and the religious authority. So that's how it works in Israel, which is not unusual because European countries work on the same model in which there isn't quite a separation of church or houses of worship and state. Official representations of different religions are supported by state governments in many countries throughout Europe. So because the founders of the Israeli political system came from Europe, they instituted European-style democracy and government to Israel, which is why the Ashkenazi and Sephardi chief rabbis, then there is such an institution. Now, knowing that where their salaries get paid from, you would think that the Ashkenazi and Sephardi chief rabbis might want to work with all organizations in Israel to try to raise the level of Yiddishkeit. The Sephardi chief rabbi wouldn't call it by that Yiddish word, but that you would think that the chief rabbis would want to raise Jewish awareness and Jewish solidarity and Jewish learning within the state of Israel. Unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. There haven't been any kind of, that I know of, any outreach organizations that are funded by the state of Israel to Jews to learn about being Jewish. The education system in Israel is divided into a religious system and a non-religious system. I've talked about this before. When my family made Aliyah when I was in 5th grade, my parents had the choice: send me to a religious school, in a religious public school in Ashkelon, or to a non-religious public school in Ashkelon. The religious public school would have been teaching Orthodox Judaism, and I probably would have been out of place since my family did not go to an Orthodox synagogue. So better go to, my parents thought, go to the non-religious public school. So it's fascinating how from school age, the Jewish community of Israel is already split, and parents are forced into making a decision. So that in the secular public school, I learned the curriculum in 5th grade when I was there in 1972 was to learn Bible, but it was not taught from a religious perspective. It was taught from literature. We didn't learn about the Jewish holidays as they came. If there was music class, we might have learned Israeli music and perhaps holiday music because it was seasonal, but it wasn't anything about what the meaning of the holiday was. So there are so many Israelis today who have no idea what it means to be Jewish. They know they have Shabbat off, but they don't really know so much about Shabbat because it's just not taught in the secular public schools. Okay, and what it's taught at home. That's the ideal, of course. You're supposed to learn about being Jewish from the home, but it's left to, and different families have different traditions when it comes to observing Shabbat and holidays. So certainly it's a lot easier to observe Jewish holidays in Israel because all the holidays are vacation days, and on Yom Kippur nobody drives. You can walk on the expressways without worrying about whether there's going to be traffic on the highway. But to ask an average Israeli what is Yom Kippur all about, the average secular Israeli will not know that. Okay, so with that background, the Sephardi chief rabbi decided to focus a Sukkot sermon on secular Jews, and suggesting that secular Jews who eat non-kosher food get stupid. So this, a little bit of background. This is Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef. His father used to be the Sephardi chief rabbi as well, Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. Rabbi Ovadia Yosef had a tremendous, held tremendous respect within the Jewish community around the world. He was a scholar. He knew about he knew about lots of Jewish, what was I going to say? I'm sorry. I was distracted by the chat about Chabad. No, Chabad does not get government funds. Chabad is an independent organization. So anybody, the official, anything associated with the chief rabbinate gets the money from the state. Anything else, independent religious organizations, independent, like the conservative movement in Israel, all get money. They have to raise money on their own for that. Okay, so that makes it, for some, an insurmountable challenge because the tax, Israelis are taxed at a much higher percentage than Americans are taxed. And so there's not much discretionary income to go around. So it's much harder for a conservative congregation to form and to raise money to build a building, to go through all the zoning requirements to get land, to purchase land, to build the building, to hire a rabbi, etc. So you already anybody and the reform movement faces the same challenges. So when you're not part of the official chief rabbinate system, you already are starting a race with your legs and arms tied. So it makes it very, very challenging. Okay, so Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, this man's father, was the Sephardi chief rabbi, and he was quite an intellectual, though he himself has said similar things over the years. I'm almost positive that Rabbi Ovadia Yosef in 2005 commented on Hurricane Katrina and the tremendous loss of life and destruction in New Orleans by saying the hurricane went to New Orleans and caused such devastation because of the transgressions and lewdness and licentiousness that happens in New Orleans. Okay, so I think Pat Robertson said the same thing, but Rabbi Ovadia Yosef said that too. Okay, so chief rabbis have said horrible things like this over the years. For example, there in the 70s or 80s, there are terrorist attacks all the time. So in Israel, tragically, sometimes the chief rabbi has been quoted as saying that any Jew killed by a terrorist, it's because there must have been something wrong with their mezuzah on their doorpost. And if their mezuzah was not kosher, that's why the terrorist was able to kill the inhabitants of that home. A blasphemous, from my perspective, a heretical, disgusting thing to say for a chief rabbi or any rabbi to say about murder and people getting murdered in Israel. Okay, so this then is not new, but is just the latest in a string of things that the chief rabbis have said about secular Jews. So here's, what's that? Okay. Sephardic chief rabbi Yitzchak Yosef called secular Jews pitiable and stupid in comments made during a weekend sermon that were publicized Sunday on social media. I am in the rabbinical court receiving cases and seeing what's happening in the secular community. The secular community is suffering. They don't find fulfillment in life. Everything is done for worldly desires, Yosef said in the sermon. Okay, rabbis do comment about secular Jews and about the nature of secular society, secular Jewish society versus traditional or that particular lifestyle, Jewish lifestyle. And rabbis do do a compare and contrast of that. And if you're speaking only to the choir, that is, you're speaking only to fellow ultra-Orthodox Jews, what difference does it make really what you're saying about others who are not part of your community and others who might not have so much contact either with the secular community? The more ultra-Orthodox you are, the more in a bubble you live, and the less likely it is that you're going to have contact with anybody who is not like you, right? So if you are ultra-Orthodox and you live in Muncie, New York, most likely you can do all your business with fellow ultra-Orthodox Jews. You can see an ultra-Orthodox doctor, you can hire an ultra-Orthodox plumber, you could go to an ultra-Orthodox kosher supermarket and get all the produce and anything that you need. And you'll send your kids to ultra-Orthodox schools, and you'll have no um, interaction at all, and you won't be watching TV in your home, nor will you be using the computer for anything other than uh, listening to a recording of a class. So the likelihood of contact with anybody ultra orthodox is slim to none. So when Rabbi Yosef is saying something like this, he is preaching to the choir and can say whatever he wants. However, the word got out, and as a chief rabbi, you should know better to than to say such something like this. So he continued, "It's unbelievable, but we need to bring them closer. We need to bring secular Jews closer to us as ultra Orthodox Jews. What some organizations are thankfully doing, bringing them closer and returning them to repentance. This is what needs to be done, and this is what Yosef's father, former Chief Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, did." He added, referring to Orthodox organizations like Rosh Yehudi that gained attention over Yom Kippur for putting up a gender divider at a public prayer space in Tel Aviv in defiance of a court order upholding the municipal policy of no sex segregation in public spaces. That's a whole other thing that happened over the Yom Kippur holiday, where the Tel Aviv municipality agreed to allow public prayer on public property, but then some other organization decided to put a mechitza there, and that raised an uproar because there were secular Jews who might have wanted to go for a little bit to this public prayer happening, but they didn't want it to be ultra Orthodox and therefore be excluded. Because there are Jews, even though Jews who might have been brought up more traditional, don't want to be separated from their spouses and their family behind the mechitza. So this was a whole big deal, and the talk was also to have this for Sukkot, but it was all canceled because of this whole Rosh Yehudi organization that tried to transform this public prayer into an ultra Orthodox prayer event. So anyway, Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef is encouraging people to reach out to secular Jews to bring them back to the fold. During the sermon, Yosef claimed that a person who eats non-kosher food, his brain gets stupid. He can't understand things, doesn't get it. As soon as he starts keeping kosher, you can start to influence him. Okay, so an absurd kind of statement to make. But again, if you're preaching to people who have never eaten treif in their life, and you want to encourage the people to keep on eating kosher, so keeping kosher makes you smarter. And if you don't keep kosher, you're at risk of becoming stupid. So just look at these secular Jews and why they're acting this way. Oh, it's because they're eating treif. The rabbi also said secular Jews are jealous of Haredi Jews, ultra-Orthodox Jews. It's all jealousy. It all comes from jealousy and becomes hatred. Nevertheless, Yosef said he believed the majority of Israeli Jews love Judaism and noted that only a tiny minority took part in the protest against the gender segregated prayers in Tel Aviv. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share from that article, and it's absurd that the article goes on to say how the opposition leaders in the Knesset, mainly Yair Lapid from the Yesh Atid party, and Avigdor Lieberman from Beitenu, represents all of the Russian immigrants to Israel, sizable population in Israel. Both said essentially the same thing, that how dare someone who gets a salary from the state, from these secular Jews, say such insulting things about the secular Jewish population. Okay, so again, the whole idea here is that it just is another example of the tremendous split in Israeli society between Orthodox or ultra Orthodox and the non ultra Orthodox. And the challenge for the non-Orthodox who want any kind of spirituality is tremendous. So it's only in the past 10 years or so that there actually have been some Jewish spiritual secular kind of offerings for Jews in Israel that are not ultra Orthodox. So when I was studying in the Hartman program, um, 10 or so years ago, this was really when this movement started. It's called Beit Tefillah Yisraeli, an Israeli house of prayer. And what it was is Friday night services on the beach in Tel Aviv. That's how it started, with singing, some Kabbalat Shabbat tunes, some Israeli melodies, and some poetry that could have been from the Siddur or other poetry that relates to the idea of Shabbat, and relates to some other kind of spiritual idea. This grew in size remarkably and quickly, so that several hundred people every Friday night now gather in Tel Aviv, and it has spread. It's in Haifa now, it's in Caesarea now, and it's in other places in Israel too, where this musical kind of hour-long service, I say it in quotation marks because it's not a traditional service, but it's an opportunity for Israelis to kind of reconnect with a sense of spirituality with their families. In Jerusalem, such a thing happens. If you've been to Jerusalem, you know that the old train station now is like a little shopping center, restaurants, cultural, like arts and crafts place. It's really a happening place. The light rail and other train system doesn't go to this train station anymore. This was the original train station built by the Turks in the 1800s. So this train station, now, like I said, it's a gathering place, and a similar kind of Friday night service happens there too. I've been there a couple of times. It's really wonderful. Like I said, families, kids, people of all ages gather for a 45-minute, hour-long kind of spiritual, joyous way of bringing in Shabbat. Okay, now you would think then that perhaps the conservative movement and the reform movement can take advantage of this search for spirituality. And this I think the reason why the conservative movement and reform movement has not really made inroads in Israeli society is that Israelis see reform and conservative as an American import. And they don't see it as a natural kind of evolutionary kind of way of being Jewish. Right. So I've told these stories before too. Whenever I get into a cab in Israel and I try to speak in Hebrew, the cab driver automatically knows that I'm not from Israel. Right. It's just my accent when I speak Hebrew is clearly American. And, if people are sensitive, when I hear people speaking Spanish, native speakers, uh, it all sounds the same to me. It doesn't sound like there's a different accent. But if you're Spanish speaking, whether you're from Spain or from South America, the dialect is a little bit different and the accent is a little bit different too. So the more you know about that particular language and its culture, the more you are sensitive to how the language will sound. So, I can't do the resh, the R sound the way Israelis do. And so just the way I pronounce my Hebrew, and most Americans pronounce Hebrew, does not sound Israeli. So automatically they hear it and they'll try to speak English to me, and then they'll engage me in conversation, which I'm not a fan of doing that with cab drivers, but they'll ask me, what do I do? What am I doing in Israel? So if I say I'm a rabbi, and I'm dressed like this, clearly I don't look like a rabbi. And what kind of rabbi? Oh, a conservative rabbi. What's conservative? Right? I will say Masorti, which means traditional, but the average Israeli has no idea what that is. All right? So why? Because the conservative movement in Israel, just like the reform movement in Israel, like I said, needs to raise money in order to make inroads, right? Because they don't get money from the state of Israel like the ultra-Orthodox chief rabbinate and their synagogues do, right? So the conservative movement has had a presence in Israel since 1948, if not before, but it's very, very, even today, it's small. There are 50 conservative synagogues or minyanim all around Israel, but the largest of them has 100 families, right? Because to be supported, you have to build a building, pay a mortgage, and pay a salary of a rabbi, all from tax money. These people, the Israelis who are paying for these conservative synagogues, already pay for the Orthodox synagogue down the street in their neighborhood and pay the salary of the rabbi in their neighborhood, but they're with their tax money, and they have to pay extra money for these synagogues. So it's been an uphill battle the throughout Israel's history, and continue. It's a thankless task to be working for the conservative movement in Israel because it really, really doesn't make inroads. So until Israelis um, adopt the idea, oh, conservative and reform Judaism, maybe that's an option. Right now, the options are secular and ultra Orthodox. So, and there has always been a division in Israeli society between these two groups. And there's even now, there have been articles about bus drivers of city buses uh, telling girls who get on the bus or women who get on the bus that they have to sit in the back because there's an ultra-Orthodox Jew in the front, and the way they're dressed would be is immodest, and it would be disrespectful to the ultra-Orthodox person sitting in the bus. So this has caused an uproar as well, right? A secular bus driver, several of them, because this happened several times in recent weeks, have issued statements like this and have been found, it has been reported that they have said such things to women sitting, boarding the bus. It happens on El Al sometimes. I'll let you know what happens when I fly El Al with the synagogue group on October 15th to see if this happens again, where sometimes women might be asked to get up from to change their seat because an ultra-Orthodox Jew sitting next to them doesn't want them sitting next to them. And El Al, state-run airline, often the flight attendants accede to the demands of the ultra-Orthodox on the airline. That's why I'm not a fan of flying El Al, and I haven't flown El Al in quite some time. So I'll see what the experience will be like. October 15th, flying to Israel, and October 26th, flying back home. And I'll report back. So these divisions in Israeli society are getting deeper and deeper, just like divisions in American society are getting deeper as well, right? So in America, it's political divisions. There are religious divisions in America as well. And in the age of social media, where there's no filter on what people say, and no sense that that you have to back up what you're saying with facts. The divisions get deeper and deeper, and this is happening in Israeli society too. Um, I'll only say this as a political statement about Netanyahu and his government, that Netanyahu, who's a secular Jew himself, does the country no favors by having formed a government with these ultra Orthodox people and right wing, ultra right wing people in his government. It only ferments more and more division within society. And Times of Israel op ed authors, other political analysts will say, you know, what Israel needs is a leader who can bring all sides together. I don't know if that's ever possible. Naftali Bennett tried, and it lasted only almost about a year in having just a secular government. So just a secular government doesn't work. Just an ultra Orthodox government doesn't work. But to have right wing and left wing together in a government, that's a pipe dream. So I'm just saying that um, until a leader can say that the divisions, what happened on Yom Kippur, and taking this public space and making it ultra orthodox, or to deride the Sephardic chief rabbi for Netanyahu, to say that the Sephardi chief rabbi is wrong, until leaders can stand up to statements like this, the divisions will continue within Israeli society. So I'm sorry for going off on tangents as I was sharing these ideas, but it's just, for me, it's very, very troubling, the nature of Israeli society, and how at times you wonder, is this the state of Israel that I want to support? Is this the Israel that I love? How can I reconcile statements by the Sephardi chief rabbi with a vision of Israel that I have, an Israel that would be a home to all Jews and let all Jews live and let live. So yeah, any thoughts, questions, or comments about this? Yes, Lori.
Yeah, a couple. What was the public space too small to have two separate services? Was that part of the issue?
So no, it's not. But like the Western Wall, that if you're going to pray, then the Western Wall area, the main area that you go to, is an Orthodox prayer space,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, because there's the rabbi of the Kotel of the Western Wall is a salaried position, as a government employee, and therefore the prayer that happens there, whether it's on your own or whether it's bar mitzvahs that happen there, are Orthodox by definition. The only prayer book that is
Mm-hmm.
available there to get, if you don't bring your own, is Orthodox. The services that happen are Orthodox, and therefore there's a mechitza, there's
Mm-hmm.
a partition there. There's no such thing as an alternative space. The women of the wall, in
Right.
Hebrew, Neshot HaKotel, the women of the wall, that organization is trying to make an egalitarian space available in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been spat upon.
Mm-hmm.
Ultra Orthodox school groups are taken there on field trips on Rosh Chodesh, every Rosh Chodesh, when Women of the Wall have their own service there, just a women's only service. And ultra Orthodox school groups are brought to spit at the people while they're praying, and to yell to try to interrupt what they're praying. And Women of the Wall have been arrested for even carrying a Torah into that space. Now, Women of
Mm-hmm.
the Wall uh, don't want don't want to go to the egalitarian Kotel, which exists,
Mm-hmm.
right, which is not under the authority of the chief rabbinate. It's in the Israeli Parks and Antiquities Division. And so there's a couple of platforms there, and the Masorti movement provides religious services that happen there at the Egalitarian Kotel. So, which is a totally separate area. And the Women of the Wall, their point is that's not good enough. We
Mhm.
want the public space to be able to accommodate egalitarian or
Mhm.
women-only prayer or egalitarian prayers. So that their fight is more than the conservative movement in having a separate site. They
Mhm.
don't want it
So,
separate. They want it part as an alternative section. So this group on Yom Kippur, I don't think the space was big enough. No, I think their point was for it to be all Jews together to have some kind of Yom Kippur event,
Mhm.
right? And then the ultra Orthodox decided to take it over and make it ultra Orthodox.
Okay. So no room for compromise.
Now, so the problem with the compromise is people, both sides. Well, I can't say that the egalitarian pluralistic side is entrenched. I can't say that, but it seems the ultra orthodox side
Mhm. Right.
is entrenched,
Mhm.
and the more ultra orthodox one is, the more the less likely or impossible to even consider compromise. Because
Mhm.
the more ultra Orthodox you are, the more you think compromise is against what you believe,
Mhm.
right? So compromise allows for another opinion, and ultra Orthodox allows for only one opinion.
Mhm.
So it's my opinion or the highway.
Mhm.
So ultra Orthodox, there's no such thing as compromise on their part.
Okay.
Yeah.
One other unrelated question. Is there a Habaram movement? It just occurred to me when you were talking that, that would sidestep the building and perhaps even a rabbi issue.
Like an independent minion kind of thing. Oh yeah, there are plenty of those around, and those happen kind of organically, kind of grassroots, but that's not in an organized kind of way. So I'm saying
Mhm.
within the conservative movement, the organized conservative movement or the organized reform movement in Israel, the synagogues affiliated with those movements in Israel, there aren't that many of them. Like I said, 50
Mhm.
conservative congregations around the state of Israel who are trying to be funded and get support. And the movement itself tries to get support from outside of Israel. So American and Canada philanthropists try to support the movement, but it's really uh, not doing well. I'm sure my Masorti colleagues would argue with me and try to argue how great they're doing, but they're really not. If in 75 years they haven't really made inroads into society, Israeli society, got to figure out another way to do that. There is a movement afoot, a spiritual movement afoot for secular Israelis, and somehow Masorti and Reform are not answering the call. Any other thoughts or comments? Okay, so next Monday, I'm not going to be able to have class because I need to take down my sukkah next next Monday morning after minyan. I really can't leave it. And the following Monday, I'll be in it. The following 2 Mondays, I'll be in Israel. So the next class will be October 30th. Okay, so that's our right. The 9th, the 6th, the 9th, no class because it's taken down to Sukkah. 16th and 23rd, I'm in Israel. October 30th will be our next class. Yes, Bob.
Just a point. It kind of galls me when these organizations reach out and ask for money.
What, the Reform and Conservative?
No,
Oh,
no,
the
the
Ultra
ultimate.
Orthodox?
Yeah, because eventually, they're going to drive a lot of the well-to-do out of Israel with this kind of attitude, and there goes the economy.
Well, okay. I think what's driving, so let me say this. For some reason, the main backers of ultra-Orthodox organizations, both here and in Israel, are secular Jews because they think that ultra-Orthodox is authentic Judaism. Okay, and so this is the Judaism. I'm not personally the secular Jew. Will say I'm not personally religious, but religion needs to keep going, and I need to support it. So I'm going to support the ultra Orthodox. Number two, I think what's driving people to leave Israel now is not the ultra Orthodox attitude. It's more about the change to the so-called democratic nature of Israeli government at large, okay, with judicial reform. That's driving people out of Israel and also investment out of Israel. So yeah, there hasn't been a major exodus of people and money to stop the judicial reform from happening, but there's been a little bit of it. Like, I don't know, whoever rates the bond rating for Israel still has an A plus plus or A triple plus, whatever the highest is. Israel still has that, but they've been threatening, the organization that gives that rating has been threatening if judicial reform goes further, the rating will drop. Okay, so that's the worst thing for a government to hear, that their rating drops, because then people, companies don't invest anymore. So it's more about the judicial reform than about religious versus secular. Okay, we'll stop here for today. Moadim l'simcha. Enjoy the rest of the holiday of Sukkot, and Jews in the News will pick up again on Monday, October 30th.
Have a good trip.
Thanks.
Have a good trip. Yeah.
Yes.